Up later, I'm Bob Costas. You may not know the face, but you might very well know the name. P.J. O'Rourke, for years, a contributor to the National Lampoon, and if that wasn't enough to have done for our culture, he's since moved on to Rolling Stone and to many books, the latest of which is Modern Manners, an etiquette book for rude people. The Wall Street Journal says that P.J. O'Rourke is the funniest writer in America. And what better recommendation than to have that said about you by the Wall Street Journal? It's like the Reader's Digest saying you're the sexiest man in America.
I was going to say, it was like Mother Jones saying, like, America's most savvy investment analyst. That's actually an old drinking buddy of mine, and it would be a lot less impressive if that blurb said, funniest man in America, old drinking buddy of PJ's. That's Andy Ferguson, who's the managing editor, or the assistant managing editor at American Spectator magazine, an old pal of mine who wrote that review, and I've been paying him off ever since.
From what kind of background does a guy who winds up writing for the Lampoon and then going on to pen etiquette guides for rude people, from what kind of background does such a person spring?
Ohio, plain and simple, you know, which you'll find a lot of if you're walking down the street in New York or Los Angeles and you see somebody with a giant spider tattoo on their face, you know, and sort of like two tufts of green hair, you know, and wearing like a spandex jockstrap and that's all, except for maybe jet-powered roller skates, Ohio. Possibly Indiana, but usually Ohio. You know, it just, because basically it's just so normal and flat that you either, you know, either you stay there or you don't, you know.
What does your family make of what you've done for a living?
That's a good question. You know, they're still calling, asking when I'm going to get a job, you know, but I think that they're a little confused by it, but it seems to be working out. You know, I don't write home for money nearly as often as I used to. So.
You started out, according to your own account, as a Republican, and didn't move to the left like many of us did in the 60s. You didn't make any real stops. You just took the leap.
Oh, yeah. I was binary. I was on-off. I was Republican, Maoist, Republican. You know, it was that simple.
No stops at socialist or...
No, and that's because it wasn't a reason.
New leftist.
It wasn't a reason sort of thing. I went to college, little Republican out of Ohio. I went to college. I'm walking down like an alley in a little college town, Miami of Ohio, cradle of coaches. And on the left side, there was a bar where all the frat guys hung out, and making a lot of frat noises and drinking beer and talking loud. And on the other side of the alley, there was this bar with a little patio with these guys out playing guitars and sandals. And there were these girls with ironed hair, you know. And I thought, you know, I'll bet those girls do it. I'll bet they do it before you even get engaged to them, you know. I bet you don't even have to get pinned, you know. And I thought, what's it going to be? Sigma Chi or fun? And, you know, it was an easy choice.
You think for most young people who grew up in the 60s and 70s that their choice of political affiliation was more, whether they realized it or not, a social choice than it was a political choice?
Yeah, next time you want to score a lit of marijuana, call a cop, you know. I mean, it's, no. Yeah, I think it absolutely, it is. In fact, I think that that's true on into adulthood. For instance, in the entertainment industry, everybody's liberal as hell in the entertainment industry, and very few of them have really thought that out.
Except Jimmy Stewart and Charlton Heston.
Well, there are exceptions.
And Ronald Reagan.
And me. You know,
right.
I mean, but and a lot of people just, for instance, the whole Brat Pack. They're just Rob Lowe. I mean, he's been a really important activist. I kind of support the Rob Lowe program.
He's been active.
He has been active, right. There is you're just not hip if you're not over on the left. And I often get that kind of thing where people say, how can you be a humorist and be conservative? Which is actually nonsense, because when you tell a joke, people laugh because of their preconceptions, because of their sort of internalized knowledge and because of their social traditions is what laughter is all about. You play on people's taboos and so on. So humor is by its nature conservative. But entertainment industry is by its fashion for at least 50 years now has been very, very liberal.
Well, the stuff you write in Rolling Stone about a wide variety of topics is very popular, but I take it that you're sort of in the minority there. Most of those guys are not card-carrying Republicans.
I am the House. I'm the only. I am the minority. I'm sort of the House conservative, the sort of pet conservative over there. And I do get a lot of angry mail, much of it on recycled paper, by by men who put circles over their eyes, you know. a lot of the recycled stationery with little unicorns across the top.
Happy faces on it?
Happy faces and stuff. So, I can't believe you voted for Ronald Reagan, you know.
On the other hand, a lot of the people who did vote for Ronald Reagan don't want to claim you as one of their own either, right? You're kind of like a black sheep in that group.
Yeah, because I don't care what people do with their private parts. I don't care about whether people take drugs or not. I mean, no, that's not entirely true. I'm not happy to have heroin addicts hanging around on the front step, or I don't want to, like, let a bunch of crack addicts in my kitchen, you know. But generally speaking, if what somebody does doesn't harm others, I don't think it's any of my business. I'm pretty libertarian.
Now, you're a Republican.
Yeah.
Proudly proclaim that.
Absolutely.
But do you have much use for Dan Quayle?
Well, you know, there's this kind of sad with Dan Quayle. I kind of feel that maybe he actually is sort of, I mean, as a professional humorist, of course, I was ready to make fun of him with the best of them. But then when we found out that maybe he actually was a little on the slow side, it just wasn't so funny.
It was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, making fun of the fat kid back in 8th grade, you know. Yeah. And you'd make a lot of fat jokes, and then you go home and feel kind of disgusted with yourself. You know?
So you got to lay off.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't quite figure him. You know, I mean, I guess I think his wife's scary.
She's got that Laura Petrie hairdo.
Yeah. Well, actually, my girlfriend says it's a Cape Buffalo. It kind of comes down like this, you know. And you know, a Cape Buffalo, you get one shot.
Yeah.
I think Marilyn Quayle's kind of the same way. You wouldn't want to wound her. You know, it's going to be real dangerous.
People can write to you at Rolling Stone, right? I don't have to field all the flack,
yes,
all the flack from this. What's the most preposterous icon out there on the left?
Now, the left, see, left really tickles me because they are forever going on. They say, the establishment runs this country, and they are fascist pigs, and they're exploiting poor people, and they're exploiting black people, and they're exploiting women, and they're exploiting children, and the establishment runs the whole government, and, okay, what's your solution to all this? Well, we need more government. We need more government programs. Wait a minute, you just told me that this fascist pigs are this establishment. They're exploiting everyone, and they're running the government, and you want more government. I don't get it. It's the same sort of thing with liberal gun control people. They're always saying that the establishment has all the power, and the establishment is doing this and raping that and so on. And the whole idea of gun control is you give the establishment, they're the only people that can have guns when you get done with
and
gun
therefore
control.
You, against all odds, it would seem, superficially, are a card-carrying member of the NRA.
I am indeed, as a matter of fact. I mean...
And you know, a lot of people out there are saying, wait a minute, I took O'Rourke to be a smart guy, and most of these NRA guys are a bunch of yahoos.
No, they're not yahoos, but there's a good reason to be armed.
I didn't say I said that, P.J. I said well, a lot of people out there are saying that.
But they're not. There's a very good reason to be armed. It's an armed citizenry. The whole idea of an armed citizenry was to keep government from getting completely out of control.
In 1787.
And I think it works now. Tiananmen Square. How can you look at something like Tiananmen Square? Who had all the guns? The army had all the guns. Did the students have any guns? No, they didn't have any guns. Poland, when the Russian tanks came running through. Czechoslovakia in 1968. Poland, or Hungary, 1956. Poland, 1952. East Germany, 1952. The people were unarmed. The Jews in Germany in 1936, they were unarmed.
But the practical application of that is, if the people all have guns, what's going to happen is not that they're going to come together in some sort of righteous coalition and fight off fascists. They're going to arbitrarily, and in some cases accidentally, kill each other or themselves.
Yeah. And that's the horrible thing that nobody ever likes to face up to, is the price of freedom is failure. And the price, if you have a free society, you're also going to be free to fail. And you're going to be free to screw up, and you're going to... A free society is a chaotic society. If you want a nice, neat, tidy society, vote Nazi, vote the Nazi line. You know, you get a nice, neat, everybody wears a uniform, everybody marches in lockstep. This can be done. This has been done repeatedly. In this century, it's been really big on that stuff. You want an orderly society. You know, get your communists, get your fascists, get your totalitarians. There is a price to be paid for freedoms. And a lot of conservatives, I'm not ranking on liberals particularly on this, but a lot of conservatives don't like to face up to that fact.
Do you recall some of the barrage you leveled at Ed Meese?
No, I don't. But at the end of that...
I mean, you do have a unique way of characterizing people. It isn't always subtle.
No, and as a matter of fact, no, it wasn't in that piece. It was another piece I wrote, an interview I did with Hunter Thompson, where Hunter and I posited the idea of locking Ed naked into a basement with a horny bull moose that had been injected with LSD. You know, and then not too long after I wrote that, I met Ed Meese, and he turns out to be a really nice guy, and I was really embarrassed.
Had he read the piece?
If he had the good manners not to say so. He does.
The premise was that you, as a conservative and as a guy who voted for Ronald Reagan, thought that you were getting government out of your life, and the next thing you know, with the Meese Commission, they're in your pants.
I voted for Reagan to get government off my back, and that's it. And I wind up with government in my pants, and I just, I don't think that that's a, that's for us to figure out.
Later continues in a moment.
From P.J. O'Rourke, Heritage USA. You've been there, you've checked it out.
Heritage USA, I always felt basically, I believe in God, but I don't believe he micromanages, and I had always basically felt that if God had meant us to spend like a lot of time in church, he would have given us bigger behinds to sit on and smaller heads to think with. Well, I went down to Heritage USA, and he'd done that for those people. The people that were there had very, very big behinds and tiny little heads up on top of their body, and it was awful sad. And I'm going around, this is before Jim and Tammy got busted, and one of the horrors of being there before Jim and Tammy got caught was thinking, is it possible that Jim and Tammy are on the level? Because that would truly be horrible. Fortunately, that wasn't the case, they weren't. But I'm going around, I'm thinking, how can I even make fun of these people? This is really sad. These people are kind of walking wounded and pathetic, and I just don't know if I've got the heart to make fun of them. And then I thought to myself, well, what if they caught me having my idea of a good time? What would they do to me? And
And just what would that idea of a good time be, P.J.?
Well, come on, this is national television, and my girlfriend's in the green room, and you're going to get me in trouble.
We'll gloss over that.
Yeah, let's just leave it to the imagination.
The Bachelor Home Companion, another one of your fine tomes, a practical guide to keeping house like a pig. Now, is a bachelor just a technical, legal state, or is it a state of mind?
No, I think it's really a state of mind, and I've actually fallen out of that state of mind since I wrote that book. High time, one might say, as I creep up on 42. But no, a bachelor is really a whole sort of gestalt, and it's not much spoken to anymore. What we have nowadays is singles. See, singles are people who go down to the health club, and singles are people who have given up iceberg lettuce, and singles are people who use tanning machines. Bachelors don't do that kind of stuff. Bachelors don't care how pale and flabby they are.
Well, you think that's true? Because
well, I don't know, because there aren't any left.
Wasn't the old image of a bachelor kind of a playboy sort of thing? So in that sense, he wanted to take care of himself. At least he didn't want to look crummy.
Have you ever noticed how, sort of pale and flabby by modern standards those playboys were?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
There's a lump in men's clothing that women really like, and it's kind of back here on the right hip. That was the idea.
You're not really much of a trendy health kick guy.
No, here we go. No, absolutely not.
Do you exercise at all?
No, I work. I live up in the country, and there's a lot of wood to be gotten in, and junk to be fooled with in the yard and stuff. I don't mind doing work, but the idea of going someplace to do work where I pay them instead of them paying me, and nothing is done when you're finished, I don't get it. The other thing is, if all that eating right and not smoking and not drinking, if all that stuff, it adds years to your life. There's no doubt about it, but it adds them to the wrong end. If I could add 20 years to my life between, say, 18 and 19, no problem. I'd cut out everything. But it adds 20 years to your life between, like, 70 and 90.
Yeah. Without improving the quality of the preceding years.
That's exactly right.
An excellent observation. What about modern manners? Now, we can't go through everything that's in this book, because obviously it's a tremendous piece of scholarship. But what would be the most important things that I would have to master to really become a guy comfortable with modern etiquette?
And the basic philosophy, after I started to think about it, I realized that old-fashioned manners were to keep you from being noticed. Because basically, in years past, in the 19th century, 18th century, there were only a few hundred people that had money. And they didn't want all the poor people to find out who had that money, or else you get like Russian Revolution, and the heck with that, said the rich people. So manners were to keep quiet. A lady should have her name in the paper when she's born, when she's married, when she dies, that kind of thing. Fools' names and fools' faces always appear in public places. Mercifully not true, or where would we be? But modern manners, the whole idea is to get noticed. Everybody's rich now. There's a billionaire under every rock, you know. If a guy like Donald Trump can get rich, what's money worth, you know? So the idea now is to get noticed, is to do things that get you noticed. And I've basically written a whole book of horrible things you can do to get noticed, such as play with your food.
Just encapsulating it then, if you and I were to go to a very ritzy dinner party, and we were surrounded by impressive people from all walks of life, an intimidating surrounding, what's the best thing that the two of us could do to really establish ourselves and to come out of it with a net plus?
Porterhouse steak frisbee game, I think. Something like that, you know, because the whole idea, you notice that fame is entirely quantitative. You may have noticed by picking up the Star or the Inquirer or whatever, or People magazine for that matter, that it doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter whether you killed 40 in satanic rituals or whether you won the Nobel Prize. It's the amount of fame, you know. A kind of like one of the lesser known Supreme Court justices and say the Green River murderer are about equally famous, you know. So the point is simply, not very few of us can do anything really well. Very few of us can do anything to help mankind. So you just do something to it's much easier to just disrupt stuff. And that's basically my message.
So if we sat there, flanked by Katharine Graham on the one side, and Henry Kissinger on the other, the best thing the two of us could do is start to play catch with the food?
Oh, right, or, you know, put a roast chicken on our hand, use it as a puppet, and go around, give Katharine Graham's nose a squeeze or something like that. You know what would happen?
You think they would find that in some way charming?
No, I don't think they'd find it charming a bit, but we would wind up with our own show on the MTV movie humor channel, you know.
No greater aspiration for me.
That's right.
Back after this. Foreign affairs correspondent for Rolling Stone, and that's all well and good, but obviously the thing at the very head of your resume, at least any right-thinking person, is your many years at the National Lampoon.
Almost a decade, yeah, from the very
What's the
early
finest
70s.
piece of work that you ever did there?
I wrote a piece called How to Drive Fast on Drugs While Getting Your Wing-Wang Squeezed and Not Spill Your Drink. Can we put that on television?
You just did.
Hell.
Kind of an invaluable guide to day-to-day life.
Yeah, I don't think we can say anything more about that. The title was, it went down from the title, yeah. And I mean, the title, we can squeak the title onto national television, and the rest of the contents of the piece will just have to be left to the imagination.
Is there anything you can do in a Lampoon or otherwise that is so absurd that you can't be criticized for it, or will somebody be offended by something you do, no matter how clearly preposterous and tongue so far in cheek it's out the other side of your face?
Absolutely.
It is.
You can't, there's nothing, in fact, there's really no joke you can make, however mild, that's not going to offend somebody. The capacity, the public capacity for literal-mindedness is just spectacular, absolutely spectacular.
So when you suggest that readers of the Lampoon should take nude snapshots of their girlfriends with buckets over their heads and send them to the editors.
They sent them in.
They did.
Yeah. In fairness, the distaff side of our staff, having protested somewhat to this, we did then run a piece called "Send us a picture of your husband's naked butt."
So, you know, P.J., you're an educated man. You just just a week ago you wrote a thing in Rolling Stone about the bailout of the savings and loan associations, and you made that intelligible and funny, which is a difficult thing to do. So this indicates that some of the circuitry up there is working, and yet you spent a good portion of your life encouraging people to send in pictures of people's naked butts. Now, how much more can you wallow in it, P.J.?
It was absolutely great. I mean, you know, and I'm also, you know, I graduated from college in 1969. I haven't had a job yet. You know, I'm pretty proud of that, too.
You're kind of proud of that, too.
Yeah, definitely.
What was the book that you wrote about your travels, sort of like a perverted travels with Charlie
Holidays
thing?
in Hell.
Holidays in Hell.
That was the product of my being at Rolling Stone, being their foreign correspondent. But basically, instead of being a serious foreign correspondent, I would go to awful places like Lebanon, South Africa, the Philippines during Marcos.
A lot of humor in those spots.
Well, you know, actually, there is. You know, that's the thing about it. When you go to these places and you meet the people that are in these places, they're very funny.
What's a typical joke in Lebanon these days?
Well, so Lebanon...
Or a humorous observation.
Eastern Europe, especially before Gorbachev, had the grimmest sense of humor, a wonderful sense of humor. That was really their only outlet. And every joke would begin with a visit to the butcher shop. You know, like a guy his wife sends him out to get some meat for dinner. He goes down to the butcher shop. It's a Czechoslovakian job. Goes down to the butcher shop, and he stands in line for about 8 hours, and finally the butcher comes out and he says, "There's no more meat." And the guy just explodes. He says, "There's no more meat." He said, "I am a worker, I am a socialist, I have worked all my life for the people, for the state, I am a veteran of the Great Patriotic War. Always I have done everything possible to build the workers' paradise for all my life. I'm 60 years old, and you tell me there's no meat? This is nonsense, this is garbage, this is a terrible way to run a country." And out of the crowd comes a big guy in a trench coat, kind of puts his arm around this fellow and says, "Comrade, comrade, contain yourself. Do not go on so. You know what would have happened if you had spoken such in the old days. So control yourself." So the guy shrugs, he goes home, he comes in the door empty-handed, and his wife says, "What's the matter? Are they out of meat?" And he says, "Worse than that. They're out of bullets."
And you'll all be telling that one around the water cooler tomorrow at the office, won't you? We'll be back. That one of our segment producers, we have 4 of them running around the office, Betsy Bournes, is leaving us to go to the Comedy Channel on cable, and this is her farewell effort, having produced this show with P.J. O'Rourke. So, are you happy now? The kind of send-off you gave this perfectly nice woman?
I'm sorry.
And she told me, in saying goodnight, to ask you, what is the difference between an expensive girlfriend and a cat?
Well, I said that it was kind of hard to tell, but that if it likes jewelry, it's probably a girlfriend, and that if it goes to the bathroom under the sink, it's probably a cat. And boy, am I in trouble now.
Yeah. P.J. O'Rourke, Rolling Stone, in New York City. That's where you write. Not to me. I'm a busy guy. He obviously has nothing better to do with his time. See you later.